Ministry podcast, where three of the most okayest youth ministers talk about youth ministry. I'm Michael Deese, and I am joined by Jeremy and Hunter. What's up, fellas?
You know, I appreciate that you're sticking with the okayest name, but I feel like we're moderately good. I wouldn't say great.
I think
Okayest may be still accurate.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okayest is best, but Jeremy's back.
Yay! Jeremy's
Welcome
back.
Yay. I will say we had this moment this week where my family was sick. I was fine, but stayed away to keep these guys from getting sick. And then about 3 days after they've recorded the episode, Michael sends out a text and says, "Hey guys, there's a way that we could just record remotely if we ever need to." And I said, "Oh, you mean like this week when y'all record without me?"
And so, hey, we can actually use that now. So that's
For
gonna be
future,
a positive
when one
thing.
of us gets sick, we'll use it.
That'll be convenient for you.
Yeah, that way we don't have to miss the episode, and Jeremy will still miss the episode.
That's fine.
Well, hey, this morning, it's morning time, everyone. We are discussing a fun topic, and first off we want to just say Happy New Year, right?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy
Just
New
around
Year.
the corner on us.
It's coming pretty quick. And we are going to be discussing New Year, New You. New Year, New Youth. So I wanted to just kind of start us off by asking these guys, without preparation or anything, what is a New Year's resolution that you've done that you actually followed through with?
Okay, so I do woodwork, and so I made a resolution.
I do woodwork.
One of my resolutions one year was to clean the shop, and I said I'm not going to take on any job in the month of January or February, and I'm going to just organize and clean up tools and fix things, and I actually did that, and I had multiple jobs pile up in that process, but my shop looked awesome for 2 months until I started the next project.
All right, Hunter, what's one of the...
Well, actually, I'm going to go against what you said. I'm going to say one that did not work out well.
Okay.
This past year, I had the idea or thought or didn't work well, but I was going to get more active and start working out again. And so I got a gym membership here in Hartselle, and one of my, but no, it gets a lot better than that. One of my members from church, who's a really fit guy, runs all the time, very in shape. He also worked out at the same time that I was working out. He's like, "Oh man, so good to see you." He goes, "Am I going to see you all year?" And I said, "Hold on, dude, calm down. Like we're getting through week 1, and we'll see what week 2 looks like."
Get the cart before the
I think I
horse.
made it through like March maybe, and just it got busy.
Yeah.
So I did that as well. One year I got this Planet Fitness membership, which by the way is the most judged membership you can buy.
100%.
People that actually work out think that's such a joke, and I don't care. But it's a no judgment zone, except for if you don't show up for a while. It tracks how many days you don't come. And so I had kind of dropped the ball and had missed a few days, and I came back in, and the lady at the register goes, "Oh, 153 days, huh?" And I said, "Is this not the no judgment zone?" She goes, "Not at the front desk."
Well, that was similar with the one in Hartselle. I went and got my membership, and she looked at it, she goes, "Oh, you haven't had a membership here since 2021 or something." I was like, "Yeah, I went to another gym in between," which I did technically. Technically I did, but it had been a while.
Michael, tell us about one of your good and bad New Year's resolutions.
Okay, one of the good one was this year, which at the beginning of the year I just said I'm going to read more books, and I'm a big reader. I love to read, but I never read more than I'd say 10 books to 20 books a year.
That's so many.
I just love reading,
Yeah.
but I just don't have time to do it. Well, this year I made the chance. I said I'm going to read more books, and I ended up reading. I think it ended up. I quit counting because I quit reading right around in September. I was just like, yeah, I've done enough.
I'm done.
But it was right around 100, and so
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a really good time. A lot of it was fiction. A lot of it was just, and I might finish one more before the end of the year. I've got one more book that I'm listening to right now.
Have you seen the thing where people
that I
try
wanna
to
count.
read the stack as tall as they are? Like they try to stack the books up as tall as their height?
I
could probably make it to my knee.
I probably did that. I don't know. A couple of the books that I read were big. I mean, they're pretty thick books, but But yeah, and then one of them that I failed at was the classic gym membership. I mean, that's an easy one.
So speaking of new year and new youth, the reality is that sometimes things aren't going as well as they need to go, and there needs to be adaptation or change. You need to come up with maybe some things that you need to resolve to change, right?
That's right.
And so what we're going to talk about today is when do we recognize those kind of moments, and how do you go about making change? One of the things that you see all the time is that people resist change, people struggle with change. So how do you bring about positive change in your group?
I think it's great. And what we're pointing out at is it doesn't require a lot of change. It doesn't have to be a big change. It can be some small changes within it. I think a handful of things is attendance, not as much excitement as there used to be when it comes to whatever that event is. Just kids just aren't, they're not showing up, but they're also, when they are there, they're not really, they're just there physically. They're just not there, paying attention and everything. So, but it doesn't have to be a huge change. I think of one of the things we do a MNT Monday night together. Every single Monday night, we've done it for years, and that hasn't changed. But how we run Monday night together has changed over the years. In the beginning, we used to get together, we'd sing, we'd break out into like a guys group and a girls group. We'd have like a little prayer time. And now it's just kind of we're doing a Bible study, we'll do a song, and we'll just kind of play some games after. So it changes over time, and a lot of that depends on the kids and kind of what their interests are, how they approach that, and then the crowd you're bringing in, the numbers. If you have a smaller crowd, it's harder to sing on those nights, opposed to just playing games and having fun hanging out.
Right.
I think something you mentioned just then is that depending on the kids, there may be a time, and this is something I know you'll evaluate, but there may be a time that comes 2 years from now that your group looks different than it does right now, and you might make a move back to more of a study time, less game, or whatever. Recognizing the personality types and the learning styles and things in your group really makes a difference.
Yeah, I started a job not long ago, and they said we do this thing called Monday Night Madness. Okay, and that's what we do. It's a Monday Night Madness, and it's I don't remember the first and third Monday night of each month.
That sounds so much cooler than Monday night together.
So Monday Night Madness is what it was. And they said, we might need to just stop doing that, is what they told me. And I was like, what do you mean just stop doing it? And they said, well, it's just kind of, madness is the perfect word to describe it, because that's what it is. And so I said, well, when I start there with everything, we're going to have a Monday Night Madness, and I'm just going to see what y'all are talking about. Madness didn't even begin to describe what was going on. When I first started there, I got there, Monday Night Madness. I said, everybody try to stay in the fellowship hall, because I don't want to clean up and stuff after all that stuff out there. We had been there for about 3 minutes, and there were people out in the halls. They were in the wheelchairs doing wheelchair races up and down the hall, busted a hole in the wall. Some kids, we had this little overhang going into our auditorium, and some kids were throwing things up there like food, just like chicken legs and chicken tenders, and seeing
who why does that need to change?
It doesn't. And so and then they were throwing forks and spoons up there, seeing who could get. I walk into one of the rooms, and there's kids in there with an Xbox that's hooked up, and they're playing, and they're just using very, very flamboyant, colorful language. And it was just chaos. Seriously, it was absolute chaos. And so finally I was like, okay, quit throwing stuff over the overhang, get into the fellowship hall right now. And they just looked at me and then just kept doing what they were doing. And I was like, all right, everybody go home. We're done. We're not doing this anymore. I called parents, and parents came and got them, and they said, why are y'all done so early? I said, because they couldn't listen to instructions. So we sent them home, and their parents took care of it. The next time, this is all I did. I changed it to Monday Night Devo. Yeah. And we didn't do anything else. I just said, we're going to change this up. We're going to do something different. It's called Monday Night Devo. And so what we did was we played games. We stayed in the fellowship hall. We played games, and we did a devotional. And all it took was just me renaming the event. And people just were like, oh, it's something brand new. And it went really well. And we did that basically the whole time that I was working with that church. Like, we did it every time that we did it. We actually... After about 6 months to a year, we actually made it Sunday Night Devo and did it on Sunday nights instead.
Well, what's cool about that is you can change the name of an event and do the exact same event, and it just brings new life to that event.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's absolutely right. And sometimes there just needs to be change. The way that things were being done, that Monday Night Madness was there was nothing positive coming from it. It was just, we've got to do something. So let's just have the kids come up here and destroy the church building for an afternoon.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did. And, that was my biggest thing about changing. Jeremy, did you have something that you were wanting to talk about?
I didn't bring anything today.
Didn't bring anything last week either.
Yeah.
Oh!
When you got it all right, you don't have to change it. So. No, okay. So one of the things that, we just said, you change the name or change how you're presenting it. An example of that is what we did here in our area-wide devotionals in the last 2 to 3 years. So I don't know what it's like in the area of our listeners, but in our area, area-wide devotionals used to be this really heavily attended, large thing that everyone looked forward to. And I think part of the reason that that's lulled in attendance or that it's gone down is just the culture of the world has changed. Kids' exposure to things that they have access to through social media, through communication. For me, when I was a teenager growing up, I looked forward to going to an area-wide devotional because that's when I got to communicate with my friends and see them that I hadn't seen in a while. Now,
Yep.
I mean, they Snapchat all day with them. They, text with them all day. They DM, all this stuff. And so they have means of communication in that way. So they're not necessarily chomping at the bit to go to an area-wide to see these people. But it had lulled. And so we got together, all the guys in our area, and we started talking about, hey, what's different now? What's changed? What do we need to approach differently? Do we need to give it a different title? Do we need to change the venue in which we're meeting? And so was it last year that we did parks?
Yeah,
Or 2
last
years
year's parks. I think we changed the title and we changed the venues.
Yes.
last year because we had nothing to lose.
Yeah, we were struggling, and we realized, hey, something has to change, or we got to dump this thing completely.
Yeah.
And so we made a shift to, instead of meeting in our church buildings, we started meeting in like local city parks, and we would advertise it in the community and try to get people to come and, as visitors or people that were walking at the park or whatever, they might hear, these churches singing worship songs together or have some sort of opportunity to come by, pick up a cup of hot chocolate or whatever. And that I thought went really well. We kind of presented it in a different way, offered a different environment, and it created some excitement to the kids because it was something different and new.
Yeah.
We didn't do that again this year.
We even changed the name of it.
Yeah. What was the North Alabama
Worship Tour.
Worship Tour?
Yeah.
So those were, or that was one thing that we in our area collectively changed. One of the things that I've seen with our group, and I have started trying to utilize this more often, is changing the environment that we're in. One of those things that I do is like right now, we're coming up on, we're in the Christmas time, and we've put up a tree in the teen room, and I put like ornaments on it, and I like to put silly ornaments on it or cutesy ornaments on it or whatever. We do what we call a share tree, where we collect gifts. People buy gifts for students, families that need help, and we instead of dropping those off in the office, now we drop those off around the tree in the teen room. So we've created that environment. But last night we had our big Christmas progressive dinner. We went out and go to all the houses, and so I went to Walmart and I got a strand of Christmas lights, these huge, big, gaudy looking, colorful lights. And I strung them up in our bus all throughout the overhang. And so when the kids got there for the progressive dinner, now the boring old bus is the party bus with Christmas lights everywhere. and it was I would say a bumping environment. It was awesome.
Awesome.
But that'd be really expensive too, because you have such a big bus.
Yeah, it took like 50 strands.
It's like a 55 passenger bus.
And let me say, one strand with the Bauer 20 volt little battery pack kept us lights hot all night. And there's going to be some videos released out there, parents. I'm sorry for the chaos that you're going to see that ensued in the bus. I'm just driving, okay? I can't help what's happening behind me.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think the worship tour went really well.
Mm-hmm.
And we went back to the area wide to kind of judge and see the difference between the two this year. But and so far that's been going really well. But yeah, so what about work camp? We've kind of been we're going to do something new this year with work camp, right?
Yeah, so this is something that has existed in the Decatur area for years.
I mean, 20 plus years, right?
Yeah, and the attendance has been a little lower. We've had some challenges with that. Sam at Beltline is the director over our work camp week, and he and I have talked about, and these other guys in our area have talked about, what do we need to do different? What can look different or change about this? And so this year we're trying something new. We're not doing a full week of work camp. We're doing kind of like sporadic service days throughout the summer, and they're going to, obviously be scheduled, for certain things, but we're going to have a set goal that day, and we're going to get together as an area group and do some sort of a service project. And there'll be different ones throughout the summer, which I think is going to be a different way of doing it. It's not an overnight trip. It's not as heavily challenging to all of our summer schedules, but it gives our students opportunity to serve together.
And I think the scope of youth ministry during the summer has at least from my experience, it's kind of gone into a more local type event thing. You do have your camps and stuff, but outside of that, there's just not a lot of things that you do overnight anymore. You have your camp and your mission trip and
a retreat.
And if you do a retreat, but so most of the stuff is more local. And now I would even say most retreats are kind of local too. They're within an hour. And so it's just more localized type events through the summer. And so that's one of the just big changes that's happened in our society, in youth ministry in general, is your big trips and stuff are not what they used to be. 10 years ago when I started, we were having overnight trips with everything. All through the summer it was overnight trip. And we're spending 30 days outside of your house. But now it's just not like that. That's just not what youth ministry is anymore. It's more local things, doing things at the church and using your facilities there. And so
it's that change in environment. I think we saw a big shift in COVID, and now we're trying to bring the Bible back into the families, but we're seeing the families closer, where they're not really wanting to be separated anymore. They've had this time at home together, and they're seeing the joy that it brought them, and now they're wanting to kind of keep that. But the main thing of that is we can't be scared to make change.
Right.
We can't sit here and just assume this idea of ethnocentrism. We've always done this thing for 20 years, and it can't change because that's how we've done it for the past 20 years, and that's how things die. And when we see stuff struggling like area wide or work camp, or just there's just not this excitement behind it anymore. You have to make something. You have to change something at some point, and not be scared to do that. And try it for a little bit. And if it doesn't work, go back to what you're doing. It's okay. You can take the loss, but you at least tried.
Let me just. I want to start off this next little segment with this story. Is that okay? Can I do that? It's called.
We will allow it.
It's called the Pink Cadillac story. And shout out to Matthew Marine who gave me this analogy, and I thought it was really great. And this I think is something that we kind of need to think about whenever we're planning something. Okay, so there were these three friends, and one of them said, "Man." They're standing outside. They've just got done eating, and they're kind of closing up, and they're about to go get in their cars. And then here comes a pink Cadillac that just drives by. And one of the guys jokingly says, "Oh man, we should get a pink Cadillac and take it to Gatlinburg." And the other two guys think that he's not joking. And they're like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go to." And then the person who made the joke is sitting there thinking, "I don't want to go to Gatlinburg. I don't want to drive a pink Cadillac. That's silly. That's dumb." But the other two people are like, "We can't be mean to this guy. He's throwing out an idea, And so they're like, "I don't want to go to Gatlinburg in a pink Cadillac. That's silly." And the other guy, same thing. I don't want to do that, but I can't say no to my friends, And so we get into this group think where we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, and we don't want to do this. When all of it came out from a joke, and before you know it, all three of you are in Gatlinburg driving around in a pink Cadillac, and none of you are having fun or doing anything that you want to do. And so we have to keep that in mind when we're planning out these things, because before you know it, you're going to end up there. Because you're afraid, I can't say no to this parent because her feelings, when it could have all just been a joke in the beginning. She was just throwing out ideas, and that's kind of the extent of what her. No, this would be a good idea. Like, oh no, after thinking about it, I don't think that's a good idea. but you've already committed to it and you've already implemented it and you're putting it in, and nobody really cared about it, And so that's an important lesson to kind of think about as we kind of change the what we're talking about into when was a time you chose to melt down the sacred cow?
And by melt down the sacred cow, we mean, this thing's been here forever, but it ain't working and it needs to change, and someone's going to have to do it, right?
Yeah. And so it's the same thing. The pink Cadillac idea here is everybody knows that this event's happening, but nobody wants to go and nobody really wants to be a part of it. But we've done it for 20 years, and we don't want to change anything. The youth minister's scared because he's afraid it's going to hurt somebody's feelings. And the adults are saying, we don't, the youth minister's planning it out. We want to let him have his thing and plan his stuff. And he loves this event, but before you know it, you're all going to an event that you really don't care about, that's only there because that's what we've always done.
Okay, so let me say this. I think we all know this because we experience it on a personal level. We experience it in a group, community level. People resist change. They push back against change, and we're scared of change. We personally are resistant to that, and as well as when we're leading things, our people are resistant as well. And so it's a little intimidating to want to be the person that pushes change to happen. But there are times where you need to. An example for us at Coleman was I was here for the first couple of years, and our youth ministry age bracket was 7th to 12th grade. It had been 7th to 12th grade for years. The reason it was 7th to 12th grade is because Coleman City School was 7th through 12th grade is middle school, and high school. And so the youth group had followed that. Well, that worked in the idea that, there were a lot of kids, and there still are a lot of kids that are in the city school system. But when I got here, there was about 50% that were in the county school system. Well, the county school system starts at 6th grade. So you're in middle school at 6th grade. And so we had these students who were in 6th grade that were considered middle schools, but when they came to church, we're like, go to the elementary age class with the 3rd graders and 4th graders. You're not welcome in the youth group. And so we made that change. And there were some folks that didn't like it at first, and that pushed back against that. We don't want them to move up in here, but it's been a valuable change, I think, personally. And it was one of those that I kind of explained, hey, here's why I'm doing this. And it may be in the future that we get to a place where all of the schools are now 7th to 12th grade and we'll move back.
Yeah.
But because it makes sense in this time, we're going to make this switch. We're going to make this change because we want to work within what makes sense.
Take a chance, make a change, and break away.
Thank you, Michael.
We had one of the churches I worked with. We had a retreat thing that happened. There was 2 retreats a year. There was a spring retreat, fall retreat, and it happened every year. They had been doing it for, I don't know how long they had been doing it. I mean, it was insane how long they had been doing it. When they told me, and they said when I interviewed for the job and got the job, they said, that's one thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a fall retreat and a spring retreat, period. That's it. There's no changing that. Everything else is up for debate, but those are not up for debate. That's what we're going to do. And so I was like, okay, that's great. Well, I went to the first one and it was fine. It went okay. The second one was that story about the cross burning. Yeah. That was the first retreat. It was fine. The second one, again, we did it and it was fine. The third one, again, it was fine. There was no big thing happening, and I tried my absolute best to make it a big deal, but they were just coming and they were just bored. And so the next time, the fall retreat, I said, what we're going to do with this one is we're going to still have the retreat. We're still going to do everything, but we're going to make it a family retreat. And we are going to bring parents in and siblings, and we're going to pack out this little retreat center, and we're going to have a really good time. Well, there was a lot of resistance from the church, and they were very upset. There was a family that met with us and talked with us, and they were like, this is a big deal. You don't need to change this. This is a thing. And I said, well, the elders said that we needed to change something. And I didn't want to just axe it because that's kind of what they were saying. We just need to axe it and do something different. And I said, well, let's try one more thing and let's change it up. And so we did. We made it a family retreat. It was the single best event that we had at that church the entire time that I worked there. It was phenomenal. There was a completely new energy with the church. There was new energy with the families, new energy from the kids. It went just spectacularly. Couldn't have gone better. We had a really, really good speaker that came in and did everything. We had a song leader that came in and did all the leading the singing, and our budget was just a little bit above what I had budgeted through, but the elders were like, hey, we were there. It was phenomenal. This was the best thing we've done with this church in I don't know how long, and it was a really tough thing for me to make that call. To just say we're going to change it up, especially when this family came and met with me and they were like, I don't know if this is a good idea. We are against it. That family actually did not come. They said we're not coming, and they missed out on a really great trip. But I understood where they're coming from, and they were really good friends of mine, and there was just nothing I could do about it because we had already announced it. We had already bought all the stuff. We'd already planned for it. We'd already done everything. But that was one of those things where this huge change was a tough decision. And it was a big deal to the whole church. And it ended up, I made the right choice in going ahead, following through with it and doing something with it. I thought it went really, really well. Had I listened to everybody or those families and everything and not done it, we would have just had another retreat and it would have been just fine. Yeah.
So based off of both y'all's stories, I have two questions for y'all. What questions do you ask when trying something new? And then what do you consider when changing regular scheduled events like that? Like, how do you approach that?
Well, okay, so at the end of this last summer, I've told you before, I love analysis. I love to find out what does and doesn't work. And so at the end of the summer, I gave out a survey, and I said, look, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I need honest responses here. What do you feel like really, I gave it to students and to parents. I said, what do you feel like really impacted your teen in a positive way this summer, whether it be their spiritual development, their social development, their biblical knowledge development. What things were kind of a waste of our time? What things do you think we need to do differently or just dump completely? And I put on there, I said, I didn't say, do you think we should drop something? I said, if you had to pick one of the trips from this summer to drop next summer, which would it be? So what I essentially said was, I told them up front, I'm going to drop something. I want you to give me input on what you think we're going to drop. Because one, we did the summer of 30 days overnight and it was awful. It was just awful. There was good in all the things we did, but it was too much and our families were exhausted. I was exhausted. My wife was exhausted with me being gone for so long. And so, we offered this kind of survey evaluation and I let people give me their feedback to say, hey, what do you feel like needs change here?
Yeah. I did the same thing. You sent me that, and I kind of tailored it to my group, and we did the same thing. And I think it's definitely a good thing to kind of poll people and figure it out. We had an event that we've been going to, and I've taken a group there almost every time that I have been a youth minister. Every year that I've been a youth minister. This year or last year, we went to this event. It went really well and stuff. But when we got home, I heard a lot of the parents just saying, I just don't know. It just wasn't that good. And the kids actually said, do we have to go to the thing? Can we just stay back and stay here and kind of hang out with each other and do our own devotional stuff? And I was like, man, we're paying a lot of money to do this, Yeah. And so I took all of that into account. I talked to our students about it and I said, hey, we've been doing this for years at this church. We've been coming here for I don't know how long we've been coming here and we've been doing this event, and what do we need to do different? And so we kind of got with some parents, and then I actually made this announcement literally last night and said, this is the big thing. We're not doing this. We're going to do something different. And the kids cheered. And I did not expect that. They were like, yeah, that's awesome. And so we're going to do something new this year, brand new, something that we've never done before. And they're excited about it, and we've got some good energy going. But questioning the families, questioning the students, getting some feedback from them, and understanding like where they're coming from and what their experience is and why they want to do things differently. If you say, well, there's just too many devos and we're sick of singing, then you know that their input really doesn't matter. But when they say things,
but if it's legit, then
when they say things like, I would rather have our own devo at our own thing, and I'll do the devo if I have to. And, you know, I don't even, we don't want to go so bad that I'm going to come out of my comfort zone and I'm going to do my own Devo.
Yeah. When
a kid says that, I'm going to take that into consideration, you know.
Well, we talked about this event before we started recording. And
yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I've been considering dropping this event for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
And every year I'm like, you know, let's just try it one more time. Let's try it one more time. And I don't know if it's the fear of me just having to change something that we've been doing for so long and getting that repercussion from the parents and kids, or if I'm just holding out hope that just something's going to change. And this year was a lot better than the previous years. And I think that's why we stuck with it one more year. So after this year, I am going to do that is give them maybe a little questionnaire of, you know, did you enjoy it? What did you like? What did you not like? Would you like to do something different?
And I think the thing is to be open to where, you know, obviously we're the leader of the group. We want to direct, but we want to be open to where they're feeling like we need to go.
Yeah.
And if your feedback comes back and they say, hey, we thought it was really good this year and it, you know, was impactful on us, keep going.
Yeah. Right.
Right. I mean, that's not a bad thing to keep something the same if it's working well. One of the things that I am trying to do more of is offer more change at Coleman, meaning like, you know, we do different things each summer, or we do different ways of approaching our retreats, or we present our classes in different ways. I found the more change I do, and the more often, the less resistance I get to it.
Yeah,
I'm not just changing for change's sake, but I'm changing something so that we don't get so bought into this thing that we have to do every time. You know, for that dinner thing we did last night, the progressive dinner, that's a total change from what that youth Christmas party was 5 years ago. And even this year was different than it looked last year. There was some similarities, so it still felt similar, but we changed the activities. We changed the way we presented it. We changed what prizes looked like. We changed, I mean, just subtle things so that they know change is going to happen.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And I'll just kind of say this. Jeremy is one of the most creative people. And I think Hunter will agree with me. He comes up with great ideas. I actually talked to somebody last night at church. It was a former youth group member of Jeremy's youth group. She came to church with us last night. And she came to see me and her friends and stuff. And she was like, I love your podcast. Shout out. I don't want to say your name, but shout out. She was like, I love your podcast. And I want to know. And I said, well, you know, we have just different responsibilities. And I said, Jeremy's best thing is just him being creative. Yeah. And she said, I can tell from the episode titles and the episode, you know, discussions that Jeremy had a hand in those titles. And so like me and Hunter came up with these 15 different things that we're going to talk about and how we're going to do it. And then Jeremy just keeps throwing out good ideas. And we're like, oh, I like that. I like that a lot better. I like that a lot better. And so even this episode, I mean, we was like, I think we should do this. And I was like, dude, that's a great episode. Yeah, I think that'll be really good. And so he's very creative. And I think the reason why he's creative is because he keeps those creative things going. He's constantly looking how we can evolve and do things better with this youth ministry, with this youth group. And he's constantly thinking up, how can I change this to make it better? What can I do to make this? And it keeps his creative juices going year round. And I had somebody that told me, if you're a youth minister and you're not making changes on a yearly basis, then you're not doing youth ministry.
Yeah. The students are changing.
Yeah, exactly.
What they need is changing. Yeah. Societally, they are changing all the time.
Yeah, and so making these changes is a big deal. It's important that we do, because let's say you do something, and let's say that retreat thing that I did, the family retreat, and it just was terrible, okay? Then that just tells me, hey, that doesn't work for us. We're going to just do back to the normal retreat thing, and we'll just have retreats that are fine instead of a terrible, you know, family retreat thing that we did. And so you're going to have events when you make these changes and you do stuff, it's just going to be horrible. It's going to just fall flat. That's going to happen. And just know that you tried something new, and if it landed, then it would have been really great. If it doesn't, that's fine. We're just going to keep going, you know, keep coming up with creative ideas, creative thoughts, and events and stuff.
And for the youth ministers who are listening, I do want to recommend one thing, and it's the book Lunch Ladies by Philip Jenkins. And that book explains how you have this leadership team, I guess you would say, within your youth group. But what you're going to have to do is kind of edit that down to make it fit your youth group, fit your church. So what we've done at Flint is I have a spiritual involvement group, is what I call it. And we meet every other Wednesday, and you know, I try and meet every other Wednesday. But the thing that we really focus on is I want to hear their ideas, the things that they like, the things that they've been enjoying, because they're part of the kids that are part of the youth group that are going through these events.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about that is a handful of those kids that are in that spiritual involvement group right now, they've had brothers and sisters that have gone through the youth group. And the things that we did while their siblings were going through the youth group, they loved, but now it's not as cool.
Right.
It's not as fun. It's not, they don't want to do as much of that anymore. So we had one event a couple months ago that we did, and I didn't really care for it. I didn't think it went that well, from my perspective. And I was asking kids, said, hey, what do y'all want on the spring calendar? Like, what are some ideas? And they said that event, and I was like, oh, did y'all like that? Like, we loved it. Like, we want to do that every quarter. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So, but you just get that different understanding, and especially for youth ministers that are older, it helps you really connect with the kids as far as seeing what they're enjoying, seeing what they like, and allowing them, kind of what Jeremy said earlier, allowing them to be honest. Hey, Hunter, listen, the things that you've been teaching this past quarter, like it's just not connecting with us. You need to do something different, teach it different, or choose a new topic.
Let me ask that. I was actually going there, so I want to ask you what is maybe a change that you've had to make in your teaching style or in the kind of way you find content? What's something that you have thought about changing in the last few years?
One of the big things that I do is every year we're going to have a study on the gospel, on one of the gospels. Okay. I have this curriculum plan. It's like I'm having to change it up. It's kind of weird now because where I was, it was a 3-year plan, and in those 3 years, you're going to go through the entire Bible. Yeah. And so I had the youth group that were there for 6 years, and so it worked out perfect. 3 years and 3 years. And then the other one was, or this year, I've kind of switched it up because we have one class that's everybody together, and then one class where we're separated. And so we have this new curriculum plan that's kind of different. And Jeremy kind of gave me some ideas for it, and we're using some of the stuff that he's using now. And it's going really well. But one of the big things that I do is I make sure that we have specific things done. So we're going to have a study on the book of Luke or John or Matthew or Mark, whichever one we're doing. It's usually a 4-year rotation with a 2-year. It's really complicated, so I don't want to get into it. We do that every year, and I want to do that because it's important that they get the gospel every year, at least once through something. And that has gone really well where I'm at now. Things are flowing really well. We start that new one in the spring. We have that new thing. We actually started it about a week ago, but we're going to continue it through the spring, and it's going to be a really good study that we're going to go through. So.
I'll tell you something that I'm about to try or change in a future quarter. New idea. And this is straight out of my wife's college stuff she's doing right now. She's taking an online class, and she's working on an elementary ed degree. And one of the things that the online teacher does is she does what she calls a fishbowl. And what she does is has everybody prepare to have thoughts on whatever the topic they were supposed to study before class is. They're all supposed to prepare as though they might have to discuss. And then when she gets to the online class that night, she chooses 3 students and says, you're in the fishbowl tonight. So those 3 people have to get in a discussion, and she mutes everyone else's mic, and those 3 are the 3 that discuss the topic. But no one knows who the 3 are until class starts. And so you have to prepare. I think I'm going to do this in a future class. I don't know if I'm going to do it every week, but I think I'm going to say, hey, next week we're going to do a fishbowl. And you guys, read, Psalm 3, and we're going to have a fishbowl, and we're going to discuss, I'm going to pick 3 of you, and we're going to come up here to the front of the room, and you're going to have a discussion that everyone else hears in front of the class, and see if it kind of promotes more of that at-home study time. I thought that was such a cool, creative idea to get students to be prepared for their class.
Yeah. I did one class that was really, really good. We had done a quarter on apologetics, and we had discussed, why we believe what we believe, and I gave them all this information, and I told them at the very beginning, we are going to have someone who is an atheist to come into the last class of the last quarter, and you're going to get to interview them, and they're going to defend their belief, and you're going to try and challenge them to believe yours. And I did that, and I talked to one of my brother-in-law, and Josh, shout out, and I told him, hey, here's what we're doing. This is what we're going to do. So by the end of this quarter, dude, I need you to be prepared to say that you're an atheist, and I need you to defend it pretty good. And he was like, I don't even have to. I don't have to do anything. I already know this, And so he put in a lot of work. He prepared himself, and he got in. And that last class, our kids were like, I said, I'm stepping out of the classroom. I'm just going to stand in the back, and y'all are going to have to convince him of Christianity, And so
That's awesome. I love that.
Sadly, Josh has abandoned his faith.
yeah, no. So we actually did that, and the kids they started off very quiet, and I said, they were quiet, and Josh was like, so do y'all not have anything we're talking about? I'm just going to go. And they were just like, well, no. Why are you an atheist? And they started asking these questions. Before it was over with, they're like, what do you think about the consequentialism of the... And they're asking all these hard questions, and Josh is up there just like rambling and trying to figure out what he believes. And he's like, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I really don't care because you're dumb. And so at the end of the class, real. I did say, hey, he actually goes to the church just down the road. And he's a Christian and everything, but I wanted y'all to know what it felt like to be challenged by somebody,
because they will be in their school.
That's right,
100%.
Yeah. So that was one of the changes that I did with my classroom that I thought. By the way, that last class, I put it out on social media. I sent out text messages and group me stuff, and we had that entire room packed out. We had about 65, 70 kids that one night when Josh was there. It was really cool.
I'll tell you something we've started utilizing. We've seen this at like some of the major conferences, things we've gone to. I've started using this teaching style, not all the time, but where I have someone from our congregation come in and I interview them about their experience of faith with this topic, right? And I say, tell me about blah, 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 blah. And they talk, and then I let the kids interview them after about that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's been a cool, kind of what you're doing there, instead of arguing about atheism, but just, talking about whatever their faith growing experience was with whatever the topic is.
I love what y'all had to say about that too, and all of our stuff goes hand in hand. And we will have an episode in the future talking about curriculum and how we kind of set up our curriculum. I've set up my own curriculum as well, and something that I've really focused on is separating and alternating that textual and topical classes.
Yes. Yeah.
And then some classes I'll have more of, hey, I'm just going to sit here and ask you questions and dig into your mind. And then some of those are going to be a little bit more lecture style and vice versa. And I thought I had a great idea one time. I was going to be out of town, and I was going to miss a Wednesday night. And this new curriculum, every single Wednesday night, I'm teaching the 6th through 12th grade, and I love it. But I had this great idea that I was going to video record myself teaching this class. Well, I was sitting through class, like my master's class at Heritage, and I had all these professors that were recording their classes. I was like, this could be pretty cool. Like, I could see and I had my PowerPoint set up. I went through Zoom. Like, I was in the little, tiny corner, and you had my PowerPoint up there. And I was like, this is going to be really neat, really neat. And I think that next Wednesday when I got back, I had my spiritual involvement group meeting, and they hated the video recording. They're like, that was the dumbest thing you've ever done. They're like, why did you make us do that? And I was like, all right.
Was this post-COVID?
Yeah, it was post-COVID.
Yeah, they hate that, man.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, check. Like, we're not going to do that anymore. I promise. Like, we're done. I'll just have a co-teacher from here on out. And I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. Like, I even added some stuff in the background and made it look nice.
You had slide animation and everything.
Yeah. And the kids were like, yeah, we don't care.
Never worked harder on a class.
Blinds.
And the kids were like,
this is terrible.
This is trash.
I had a fog machine in my office going. No, they hated it though. But in a serious way, don't be afraid of change.
Right.
It's okay.
You're going to fail.
If it does not work, apologize and go back to what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Well, do y'all have anything else you want to discuss about New Year, New You?
What he just said on the front end, say, I'm trying something different, right?
Yeah.
And I want your feedback. Like I'm asking for you to give me your,
be honest.
Be patient with me. Give me a little grace here to try something new. But please let me know if you think that this isn't working this way and we need to go back to the other way, or if that doesn't work either and you got a new idea that we could try, So, be open and be honest about your changes.
Yeah, and remember, a lot of times when you're making these changes, they're going to have a little bit of pushback, but don't be the person in the pink Cadillac driving to Gatlinburg when nobody else wants to go with you, and they're just going because they love you and they want to support you, and they think you're doing your best, and so they want to. Don't do that. Don't be that person who ends up doing that.
Your ministry deserves better.
That's right. Yeah. And you're not. You need to evolve with the times. You need to continue to grow. You need to change. You need to make changes. You need to be willing to serve your kids in a way that makes them uncomfortable, makes the parents uncomfortable. And make sure that you're challenging them and you're staying relevant with the times and everything. So, Well, if that's all, I'm really glad that you guys are listening. Remember, go to our website, OkayestYouthMinistry.com, and check out some of the resources we have. Hunter just put out a new one, a Lost Retreat booklet that was maybe about a month ago that's really good. If you want, you can go on there and ask a question. You can check whether or not you want to subscribe to our newsletter. I don't really send out many emails, maybe once a month or so. And then I might send one whenever we put out a new resource. And there's free resources on there as well, so check those out. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Make sure to tune in and like and subscribe the show. And then also make sure that you are reviewing our show and giving us the however many stars or whatever, because that does go a long way in its suggested podcasts. So make sure you're doing that so we can get a bigger audience. But we really appreciate what you're doing. We're praying for you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever it is.
Whenever this comes out.
Whenever this comes out, we're grateful for you. We're thankful for you, and we hope that your youth ministry is blessed.
Thanks for joining us today in the important conversation of youth ministry. Go and follow us on Instagram and check out OkayestYouthMinistry.com for more information about our upcoming episodes. We'll be dropping a new episode every Wednesday morning, and we look forward to talking with you again next week. And hey, it's okay to be the okayest youth minister around, but let's all strive to be just a little bit better.